In a small village called Osisi lived a young girl named Ifunanya. She lived with her aunt, Madam Nkechi, because her parents had died when she was very small. Ifunanya was not treated well in the house. Every morning before the cock crowed, she would wake up, sweep the compound, fetch water from the stream, wash plates, and cook before going to the farm. Her cousins, Chiamaka and Uche, did nothing. They would sleep, eat, and laugh at her. One morning, Madam Kechi shouted, "Ifunanya, you are still sleeping? Get up and walk, lazy girl." Ifunanya jumped up quickly. Her body was weak, but she still obeyed. At the farm, she worked from morning till evening. Her hands had blisters and her back was always in pain. Sometimes she would sit under a mango tree and cry quietly. One day, an old woman passed by. She saw Ifunanya crying. The old woman asked gently, "My child, why are you crying?" Ifunanya wiped her tears and said, "Mama, I suffer too much. No one cares about me. I work like a slave in my own family." The old woman looked at her carefully and said, "Dry your tears. Your pain will not last forever. One day, power will rise from your suffering." Ifunanya did not understand, but she felt peace in her heart. That night, while everyone slept, Ifunanya heard a strange voice calling her name from outside. "Ifunanya, Ifunanya." Her heart began to beat fast. She stood up slowly and walked to the door. Outside, the night was dark, but something was shining near the old mango tree. Ifunanya stepped outside slowly. The night air was cold and the crickets were singing loudly. Her legs were shaking, but she gathered courage and walked toward the shining light under the mango tree. As she got closer, she saw that the light was not fire. It was a glowing calabash floating in the air. The calabash was turning round and round, making soft humming sounds. Ifunanya trembled. Who is there?" she asked with a small voice. Suddenly, the old woman she met at the farm appeared beside the tree. But this time she looked different. Her eyes were glowing like stars, and her wrapper was shining. The old woman smiled and said, "Do not be afraid, Ifunanya. I have been watching you." Ifunanya fell on her knees. "Mama, please don't harm me. I am only a poor girl." The old woman shook her head gently. "I am not here to harm you. I am here because of your suffering and your good heart." She pointed at the glowing calabash and said, "Inside this calabash is your destiny, but power is not free. You must pass a test." Ifunanya swallowed hard. "What test, Mama?" The old woman picked up a small stick and drew a circle on the ground. Inside the circle, she placed 3 items: a broken pot, a bitter leaf, and a mirror. She said, "You must choose only one. If you choose the broken pot, your pain will continue, but you will live long. If you choose the bitter leaf, your life will be bitter now, but sweet later. If you choose the mirror, you will see the truth about your family, but it may break your heart." Ifunanya looked at the 3 items carefully. Her heart was beating fast. She thought about her aunt who treated her badly, her cousins who laughed at her, and her endless suffering. She closed her eyes and prayed softly, "God, guide me." After some moments, she opened her eyes and stretched out her hand. She picked the bitter leaf. Immediately, the ground shook slightly. The glowing calabash opened by itself and a bright wind blew toward Ifunanya. The bitter leaf in her hand began to shine. The old woman nodded. "You have chosen wisely, child. From now on, your pain will shape your power." Suddenly, Ifunanya felt a sharp pain in her chest. She fell to the ground, breathing heavily. Strange visions flashed in her mind, herself walking far away, working hard, facing enemies, and standing tall one day. Then everything went quiet. When she opened her eyes, it was morning. The sun was rising and the calabash was gone. The old woman was nowhere to be seen. Ifunanya stood up slowly. Her body felt different, stronger. Just then, Madam Kechi's voice rang from inside the house. "Ifunanya, are you still outside dreaming? Come and fetch water now." Ifunanya looked toward the house. This time, she did not feel small or afraid. She picked up her bucket, but in her heart, something had changed. She did not know it yet, but her journey from pain to power had truly begun.
That morning, Ifunanya went to the stream to fetch water. Normally, the bucket would feel very heavy on her head, and she would struggle all the way home. But as she lifted it, she felt something strange. The bucket felt lighter than usual. Her body felt steady, and her legs did not shake. She walked home slowly, balancing the bucket without wobbling. Some village women who were passing looked at her in surprise. One of them whispered, "Is this not Ifunanya, Madame Kechi's housegirl? She is walking like someone carrying feathers, not water." Ifunanya heard them but said nothing. She kept walking. When she got home, Madame Kechi was already outside waiting for her. "You are late again," Madame Kechi shouted. "Drop that water and go to the farm immediately." Ifunanya placed the bucket down calmly. For the first time, she did not rush or tremble. Madame Kechi frowned. "Are you now proud? Answer me." Ifunanya looked at her aunt gently but firmly. "Auntie, I went as fast as I could." Madame Kechi raised her hand to slap her, but suddenly her hand froze in the air. She could not move it. Her face twisted in shock. Chiamaka and Uche ran outside. "Mama, what is wrong?" Chiamaka asked. Madame Kechi tried to speak, but no words came out. After a few seconds, her hand dropped back down. She looked at Ifunanya with fear in her eyes. Ifunanya did not understand what had just happened, but deep inside, she felt a quiet strength growing. She went to the farm as usual, but this time, she did not feel tired quickly. She walked faster and stronger than before. At noon, when the sun was hot, she sat under the mango tree to rest. Suddenly, the same old woman appeared again, sitting beside her. Ifunanya jumped. "Mama, you came again?" The old woman smiled. "Your power is already waking up, but your heart must remain clean." She placed a small white bead in Ifunanya's palm. "Keep this bead close to you. It will protect you. But remember, power without wisdom can destroy." Before Ifunanya could ask questions, the old woman disappeared like smoke. That evening, when Ifunanya returned home, she met her aunt sitting quietly, unusually calm. Madame Kechi said, "Ifunanya, come and sit." This shocked Ifunanya. Her aunt had never spoken to her like that before. As she sat down, Madame Kechi stared at her carefully. "Since yesterday, strange things have been happening in this house," she said slowly. Suddenly, a loud crash came from the kitchen. All the plates fell and broke by themselves. Chiamaka screamed. Uche ran out in fear. Madame Kechi stood up trembling. "Ifunanya, what have you done? What spirit is following you?" Ifunanya felt her heart pounding. She remembered the glowing calabash, the bitter leaf, and the old woman's words. Before she could answer, the ground shook again, and a cold wind swept through the compound. From the darkness, a deep voice echoed, "The one who has suffered will rise." Madame Kechi fell on her knees. Ifunanya stood alone, tears in her eyes, unsure whether to be afraid or hopeful. And in that moment, she realized her life would never be the same again. That night, the whole compound of Madame Kechi was filled with tension. No one could sleep. Even the crickets were strangely quiet. Ifunanya lay on her small mat in the corner of the room, holding tightly to the white bead the old woman had given her. Her heart was heavy, but her spirit was strong. Suddenly, she heard whispers outside. "Ifunanya! Ifunanya!" She sat up quickly. The door creaked open by itself, and a soft blue light entered the room. The old woman appeared again, standing at the doorway. "Ifunanya, it is time," she said calmly. Ifunanya stood up slowly. "Time for what, Mama?" The old woman pointed toward the compound. "Your aunt must face the truth tonight. Power has risen, but justice must also rise." As Ifunanya stepped outside, she saw that Madame Kechi, Chiamaka, and Uche were already awake, standing in the middle of the compound, shaking in fear. Madam Kechi's eyes were red from crying. She fell on her knees immediately she saw Ifunanya. "Ifunanya, forgive me," she cried loudly. "I did you evil. I treated you like a slave. Please, do not destroy my family." Chiamaka and Uche also knelt down, crying. "Ifunanya, please forgive us," they begged. Ifunanya felt tears in her eyes. She remembered all the beatings, the hunger, the insults, and the sleepless nights. But she also remembered the old woman's words, "Your heart must remain clean." She wiped her tears and said softly, "Auntie, I forgive you." Immediately, thunder rolled across the sky. A bright light appeared above the compound. The glowing calabash returned, floating high in the air. A powerful voice echoed from it. "Forgiveness has opened the door of power." Suddenly, Madame Kechi began to cough violently. From her mouth, black smoke came out, the spirit of wickedness leaving her body. She fell to the ground, weak but free. When she opened her eyes again, she looked different, calmer, softer. She crawled toward Ifunanya and held her legs. "My child, from today you are my daughter," she said with genuine tears. At that moment, the old woman appeared beside Ifunanya again. She placed her hand on Ifunanya's palm and said, "You have passed your greatest test, the test of the heart." The ground shook gently, and the glowing calabash opened wide. Inside it was a shining crown made of light. Slowly, it descended and rested on Ifunanya's head. Her body glowed, her eyes shone. The whole village, who had now gathered at the gate, gasped in amazement. The village chief stepped forward and bowed slightly. "From today, Ifunanya is not a slave. She is a child of destiny." People began to whisper, "From pain to power, from suffering to greatness, Ifunanya has risen." But even as the crowd celebrated, a dark shadow appeared at the edge of the compound, watching silently. A deep, evil laughter echoed faintly in the wind, and the old woman's face suddenly became serious. She looked at Ifunanya and said softly, "Your first battle is over, but the real war is about to begin." The dark shadow at the edge of the compound began to move. The air became cold and the wind started to howl like a wounded animal. The villagers stepped back in fear. From the darkness, a tall, crooked figure emerged. It wore tattered clothes and its eyes glowed red like burning coal. Its voice was deep and rough. "So, this is the girl they call Child of Destiny," the creature said mockingly. Ifunanya felt her heart shake, but she held tightly to the white bead in her hand. The old woman stood beside her, calm and firm. "That is the spirit of oppression," the old woman said. "It feeds on suffering, fear, and wickedness in families." Madame Kechi trembled where she knelt. "This spirit, it has lived in me for years," she cried. "It made me hate Ifunanya." The dark spirit laughed loudly. "Yes, and I am not finished yet." Suddenly, it stretched out its hand toward Ifunanya. A dark wind rushed toward her, trying to throw her down. But the glowing crown on Ifunanya's head shone brightly. A powerful light burst from her body, pushing the darkness back. The spirit screamed in pain. Ifunanya stepped forward boldly. "You will not rule here anymore," she said with a strong voice. She raised the white bead and bright rays of light shot out. The spirit began to burn like smoke in fire. "No!" it roared. Within seconds, it disappeared completely, vanishing into the night. Silence fell over the village. Then, slowly, people began to cheer. Madame Kechi crawled toward Ifunanya again, this time with deep respect. "My daughter, you have saved not only me, but this entire village," she said, bowing her head. Chiamaka and Uche also bowed. "We are sorry for how we treated you," they said together. Ifunanya helped them up gently. The old woman smiled and placed her hand on Ifunanya's shoulder. "Your pain has transformed into power because your heart remained good. That is your greatest strength." Suddenly, the glowing calabash appeared one last time.
It opened, and golden dust fell like rain over Ifunanya, Madame Kechi, and the entire compound. The old woman began to fade into light. "Remember, Ifunanya," she said softly, "power is not for pride. It is for protection, wisdom, and kindness." Then she disappeared completely. From that day, life changed in Madame Kechi's house. Ifunanya was no longer treated like a slave. She was loved, respected, and cared for like a true daughter. Madame Kechi worked together with her, not against her. The village also began to treat Ifunanya with honor, not fear. Years later, Ifunanya grew into a strong, wise woman who helped others who were suffering. She never forgot where she came from, and she never forgot the lessons of her pain. And whenever someone asked her how she became great, she would say, "I did not rise because I was powerful. I rose because I refused to become wicked." The end. Moral lesson. No matter how much you suffer, keep a good heart. Pain can break you or build you. The choice is yours. Wickedness may bring temporary power, but kindness, patience, and forgiveness bring true and lasting greatness.